My name's Sally Spilsbury and I am a lecturer in the law school and I teach level 6 on the undergraduate LLB programme. In the unit that I lead, we have an assessment, a coursework assessment, that requires the students to give advice to a notional client as if they were a trainee in a legal department. And it's in the form of a memo of advice, so it's got a tight word limit of 2,000 words. They have to set out a memo that's written in a way that's appropriate for a professional context, and it has to give very direct, practical and specific advice. So for this particular assessment, which is unlike most assessments, we're not really interested in any critical evaluation. It's very much has a direct target at employability skills. This is a new kind of assessment for the students. So in workshop 2, we introduced the assessment by giving them a memo that we've prepared and asking them to critique it from a structural point of view, kind of how we've put it together, what's good, what works about it. And then we move that forward, require the students in a different question to produce a formative memo themselves. So a formative memo of advice, having had the benefit of critiquing our memo, and they hand that in individually, and that's marked, and they get feedback, individual feedback on that formative assessment, which is then followed up by a one-to-one appointment with a tutor. And the next stage is that they prepare their summative assessment, which they then submit, and we will give them full feedback, full written feedback on their summative performance at that point as well. The feedback that we give on the formative assessment is in 3 stages. The first stage is that we would mark the formative assessment and we give written feedback, and that's full feedback, and then we also give them a summary of their performance and a mark for the formative assessment. What we're very much looking to do with that formative feedback is to build confidence, because this is a new type of assessment for the students, so we're as much about telling them what they're doing right as what they could improve. So it's confidence building, but at the same time giving them tools to improve when it comes to the summative assessment. So that's the written feedback which the students receive by email within a week of submitting the formative assessment, so it's prompt, it's in their mind. The second stage is that as part of their workshop programme, the students have to reflect on their formative feedback. And that's done in a prescribed way, so we give them some instructions about the kind of things they should be thinking about. Stage 3 is a one-to-one appointment with a tutor to go through our written feedback, but also the work the students have done to reflect on that feedback. So that's where we really underscore the fact that the feedback is this two-way process, it's a dialogue. And most students, when they come to that meeting, and the vast majority of them had taken it very seriously, what they wanted to know was, how do I improve my grade? How can I get a 2-1 or a first? And because of the way we'd structured the activity, actually it was quite easy in the context of the interview to turn that back and to say to the students, you tell me how you can improve that grade, which is obviously a much more positive and engaged way of responding to feedback. So that really kind of is this cycle of the feedback around the formative assessment. The feedback we give on the summative assessment has a different objective to the formative assessment, because the students won't be doing an assessment in the same form, exactly the same form in the future. So the emphasis is on pulling out generic skills, because the formative and the summative assessment is a memo of advice. So that's a particular way of presenting information, but the generic skill of problem solving is something that pervades the whole of the law degree. And it's those same generic skills that are just being presented in a different way in the coursework. So with the summative feedback, we're picking up on those generic skills so that we can be useful to the students in preparing for their coursework and their exams in this subject, but the other subjects as well. So where a student has used legal authority, for example, in a way that makes their advice very convincing, that's a generic skill, and we'd highlight that. Where they hadn't done that, we would highlight that and say this is really something to work on because it's going to benefit your future assessments. So that was the first objective of the summative feedback. The second main objective was actually to get the students to reflect on the employability skill they had developed through the coursework, because they could now write a memo of advice suitable for a professional context, whether it's a legal context or any other context. And I really wanted to highlight to the students they'd done that, they'd achieved it, and also they had evidence that they could use in job applications, for example, or in interviews to show that they had achieved it. And so the first paragraph in the summative feedback was saying, well done, you have now been able to demonstrate that you can produce a competent, good, very good, excellent memo of advice, to just reinforce that for them. I think they like the individual appointments. I think they found that very useful, that one-to-one discussion that they can have in addition to written feedback. That chance to kind of talk around the points that we've made, and just the individual attention. I think they like the fact that their work seems to be being taken very seriously. They also like the fact that the positives are identified for them, and then the constructive nature is the thing of the feedback, is the third thing that they've identified. They say it's very clear, very specific feedback, it's detailed, and they feel they know how to improve to the next grade. So it's kind of maximum use value for them, I think.
Thanks for watching this Good Practice Exchange film. You can find loads more teaching ideas on our website. Visit celt.mmu.ac.uk/good_practice.